about the picture. I didn't like it. It used it Friday night, but it wouldn't let me use it this morning. I don't understand that, but anyways, so here we go. You got the rumble going. Looks like we're moving. Hopefully. Kind of looks like maybe we're going to get going here this time around. Second try this morning. Looks like we're live. Looks like we're moving. All right. Looks like we're on. Everybody else, we're connected. We're going. We're good. All right. So, finally, we're back. We got it together. Shit is moving. Welcome to the show. Sunday morning. Good to see you here at the High Desert Music Channel. Today's going to be Life in Music, episode number 3. Which means I'm going to have to start putting more of these together. I'm going to have to get some more of these thought up and put together for you guys. I only have a couple more written down. So, we try to keep these to shorter episodes for those of you guys that haven't watched before. I try to keep the Life and Music episodes to, 15, 20 minutes. It's Sunday morning. I'm sure you got other stuff to do. And, there was certainly better things to do than hang around with me. So anyway, maybe you checked it out yesterday. We did a little show yesterday morning. Tried to do the Folgers and Fenders thing yesterday morning. Kind of worked, kind of didn't. I haven't actually watched that video yet. Well, that's awful warm. I guess, given that it's coffee, it should be warm. I mean, it's not like I want to drink iced coffee. That's not what I went looking for. Anyways, so we tried the Folgers yesterday. The Folgers and Fenders. It kind of worked, I think I might want to change some things up. I was unable to do all 3 channels. I couldn't do the Rumble stream thing from my phone. If I could figure out how to get OBS to work on my telephone, and I think I could do it from my phone to all 3. Maybe there's a remote way to do it. I don't know. Like have the computer on and the telephone out front on the porch to do the filming. I don't know. Maybe there's a way I can do it to all 3 channels. I'll try to figure that out. But it's Sunday morning, it's Life Music, and that is not what we're here for, to talk about yesterday's practice session in the morning. But I'll probably keep doing those. We'll probably keep checking those out and try to do some more of those in the mornings, at least while I can. So anyway, episode 3 of Life and Music. Today I kind of just wanted to talk about how I got here. Just sitting in front of this camera talking to you guys. There's a few people that watch, not a lot. And hopefully we can change that. Hopefully we can spread the word. Maybe it's shows like this that'll do that. I don't know. But I just kind of wanted to, give some sort of background, tell you guys some information about me, I suppose, and how I got to the channel. How I came to being here, doing this, and wanting to spread it around. How did I get here to playing music, to trying to run this channel, to trying to now figure out how to make music the whole world for me. So let's talk about that path. When I was real young, real young, I took piano lessons, and I'm pretty sure that I remember correctly that this lady's name was Mrs. Bryant. She was pretty, she was a good piano teacher in a tiny Missouri town. She was a pretty good piano teacher, and lots of kids in town had gone to her. My sister, a bunch of my sister's friends, so on and so forth. And I know I've talked about this a little bit here and there, just kind of in passing and mentioned it. But this was my first taste, my first real foray into music, I suppose, if you wanted to use such a word. So piano lessons with this lady were helpful, were good. I learned the normal stuff that people learn when you take piano lessons. Hand positioning, middle C, blah, blah, blah. And I was never a pianist. Don't get me wrong. I was like an 8 or 9 year old kid, little boy, obviously. But yeah, I was a little kid. I was only going to go so far. And we'll get to why. So, the piano lessons were pretty useful in terms of, again, hand positioning, musical theory, things like that just did not grasp in an 8-year-old, 9-year-old mind, 10 years old, whatever it was, 8 to 10. My mind was not going to wrap around those things. Sorry about that. My mind was just simply not going to wrap around those things at that age, and I did, that stuff just went right over my head. But she taught. Her teaching method was to teach kids to play the greats, the classical stuff, Chopin, Bach, Beethoven, blah, blah, blah. And as you would progress through, years or seasons with her lessons, and had gotten into like her piano recitals and such, my sister had a bunch of, she would give you like a little bust of the person, of Bach or Beethoven or whomever. And my sister, she had a bunch of them. My sister, she had a load of those things. 4 or 5 of them. I can't really remember. I'm sure she still has them all. She still has a piano that we had when I was a kid. My daddy busted his ass to buy a piano for my sister to play, and I never really picked it up. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? So the lessons with Miss Bryant, they were going, Mrs. Bryant, they were going pretty well. And I was learning things. Don't get me wrong. I could play a mean version of Silent Night, man. Because, everybody wants to hear Silent Night now and then. It looks like, are we froze on screen here? I don't know what's going on, man. Not real sure what's happening with the feed. It's whatever, dude. Ain't nobody watching no how. It looks like we're going good on YouTube. The Rumble screen seems to be frozen, so I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see what's happening. Mrs. Bryant and her lessons. So I learned to play some stuff, these simple versions of stuff. Don't misunderstand. I was not. Didn't get very far. Didn't get real far, didn't progress a whole lot, but I could play a few tunes, and they were, again, Silent Night, and I'm sure there's maybe like some Fur Elise, that kind of thing. I can't even remember. Silent Night was the one that sticks out for some reason. I'm pretty sure I played that in a piano recital, the one and only piano recital that I was ever involved in myself, directly. Pretty sure Silent Night was what I played. Maybe that's why it sticks out in my head. Anyway, that to me, I didn't know it at the time. I had no clue. We didn't know how to speak up for myself or to ask for what I wanted for it, because I didn't know what I wanted out of music, at the time. Chances are, if that lady would have taught me the current Merle Haggard tune or the current Bon Jovi tune, something I heard on the radio, it probably would have made me want to play a lot more. It probably would have made me much more interested in sticking to music. But it didn't. Didn't work that way. Such is the world. Sometimes it does work that way for you. Sometimes it doesn't. So I quit taking those piano lessons. I was able to talk my mother into letting me out of them. Good, bad, or otherwise. That's how that one turned out. And so that was my first try at music, and it didn't take. I can remember sitting in front of the piano. We had like what I would say is the forbidden room, the one you're not supposed to go into, the room that's only supposed to be looked at, or like for the really special people. Certainly not you. Anyway, there was a piano in there, and I can remember sitting in front of that piano and thinking, I want to write a song, man. And I was little, and but I would learn through the piano lessons how to write notes, how to write music, and music classes in school. that's another thing too that probably helped to push where I am, to shape where I am, to drive me to what I want to do. When I grew up, we had music class in school. That was a thing. Music class in school was every other day. So you did 2 days of PE or 3 days. I think it was 2 days of PE, 3 days of music, and then the next week it would be 3 days of PE, 2 days of music. I'm pretty sure that's how that went when I was a youngster. So we had music class too, and I was learning how to write music and read music, whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, things like that, and understand their placement, how to draw them, so on and so forth. And I can remember trying to sit in front of that piano and think, I want to write a song, man. I want to write a song. And, push one key, okay, write that note down, and then another one, and write that note down, and not really knowing that you should just kind of start playing and find things that move and then just remember it, and write it down. But I remember that, and being even at that age, to some degree, being interested enough to say, I want to try to do this. I want to try to write a song. Nobody in my family was overly musical. So I didn't get pushed in that direction from them. Not good, not bad, whatever. That's just how it is. Some families are musical, some families aren't. My cousin, like I said, one of my cousins can play the drums, and guy had a caboose in his yard, man, for a recording studio. He's obviously a musician and always was. And I, again, just never kind of took with me as a kid. It didn't grasp me for whatever reason. So anyway, that was my first foray into music, was the piano lessons, and thinking that, I could write a song, and realizing that I don't know how to do it, and nobody was going to teach me. I didn't ask to be taught. Didn't realize how much of a grip that would have on the rest of my life, the rest of my world, I suppose, at 8 or 9, but who does? At 8 or 9, you don't know. You don't have a grip on what's going on in the world. You're just kind of guessing. So then comes around, I want to say 6th or 7th grade, maybe 7th or 8th, middle school for sure, Beaker Middle School, Marshall, Missouri. And there's a kid in town, and I remember it clearly. Kid's name was John Thomas, and he had a guitar. He came from like a musical family. Everybody they all played something. And we weren't like great friends. We just kind of had met at middle school. It's a small town. Don't get me wrong, but even in a small town, groups of kids know certain groups of kids, and not necessarily other groups of kids. Even in tiny little towns, where there's only 150 kids in your graduating high school class. There's some of them you're just not, them, but you're not friends with them, Anyways, we weren't necessarily buddies. We knew each other and had a couple of classes together, and it was the first time we'd really starting to hang around with each other. And he had a guitar, and good God, if I could, Christ, I can't remember the conversation or anything that would have led to that guitar landing in my hands. I do kind of remember, I'm certain that it was Strat style. I doubt that it was a Fender. I doubt that it was a Squier. I don't know. I that part couldn't tell you. I remember it being white, maybe, or maybe it was a white pick guard on a black guitar. I can't remember even the color of it. And you'll understand why when I get done with this part of the story. So anyhow, that guitar got put into my hands because I kind of, it was again one of those, let's try it, man. That seems so cool because here's a kid my age that could do it. I do remember that. That could actually play a guitar, and it sounded, kind of like some of the stuff you heard on the radio. So this is a kid that can do that. I think I want, yeah, I'm totally into that. Let's do it. And that's pretty much how this guitar ended up at my house, in my hands. And my mother will say she doesn't remember it, and whether she does or doesn't, doesn't matter. I don't know. But anyway, based on the individual that the guitar came from, and the fact that it was designed to play loud rock and roll music, it wasn't going to work in our house. That's just not something you're going to do. Not not happening. And I mean, my parents bought me a crappy little drum set when I was a kid, I think, because my cousin played the drums, and so they bought me a drum kit. And nobody really, it was like, here's this thing that you have no clue how to use, and it's not really a toy. This is actually something that could focus your world and your life and your brain power for the rest of your days. But nobody gave me that direction. Here's a drum set. Go bang away on it and break it and tear it up and not know how to treat it. And that stuff was missing. And so be it. That's it's childhood, I guess. I hadn't really thought about that drum set in 40 years. But I do kind of remember having it, So again, I mean, even the piano lessons probably weren't the first foray into music. That probably was the second or third trip around, based on the fact that now I'm remembering these drums. Anyways, but the guitar from John Thomas and the fact that it was made to play rock and roll music, and it just wasn't going to fly. So that went away. And again, that was probably like 6th grade, 7th grade, 12, 13 years old, 11, 12, 13, whatever. 6th to 8th grade, 11 to 13. That's how that went. And that's kind of how, in terms of music and making of music, that's kind of how it went for me for a long time after that. I didn't really get in. I mean, I listened all the time and was way, way, way into listening. Kind of always, I don't know if I'm going to say it's a knack or something I just have. I don't know. But, back when you could go buy a CD, when Best Buy sold CDs, and CDs were cool, and even tapes, man, even tapes. I grew up in that generation, when you had to fast forward and rewind to get to the right spot, flip the tape over to get the song that you wanted. And, but even that stuff, like I could listen to an album, a newly released album from somebody back then, and listen to the whole thing and say, okay, this one, those are going to be your radio songs. The rest of these are all B-sides. And be pretty right most of the time, and be pretty close with what I thought the day I bought the album, the day it came out, that a year and a half later, yeah, all the songs I thought were going to be radio songs were the radio songs. So, I mean, music has never left me. And I was always, most of the time, in that, most of my life, period, has just been spent being a listener. And, a mad singer-alonger to the radio in the truck and in the shower and all that shit, like everybody else. So anyways, after 6th or 7th grade and the John Thomas incident with that Strat-style guitar, years went by. Years. And the next time around, I was 21, probably. 21. Barely 21. And I was living in the basement of the 680 house with my first wife, and our son was tiny, a few months old. And if you've ever been to Carbondale, you know what the 680 house is. If you're from Bonedale in the 90s, you know what the 680 house is. So we had the basement at the 680 house. And there were some friends of mine, it was one of those situations where, there's a bunch of couples living in a pretty decent-sized house. One couple here, one couple there. We had the basement. Anyways, I had a couple of buddies. Corby liked to play music, and his brother, Odie, they liked to play music. The Anderson brothers. They were musicians. Their family was musical. It just had been in them. You know what I mean? It was just in their world. And I had another friend named Tommy, and he was a bassist and had been in band, was musical, been in bands, played in bands, and just knew how to play, was a musician, had been playing a bass for a long time. And they had this little cabin right next to the river, right next to the Roaring Fork River. Tommy had a cabin right next to the Roaring Fork River, and it came with a second little shack out back that they used for a music room. It was sweet. And, you sit on the deck of this place in the Aspen Valley and listen to dudes play music, man, and the rivers, it was cool. um, and I tried then too. Corby gave me one of his guitars. It was also a cheap. I believe that one was actually a Squire, but it was a Strat style guitar, and an amp, but I didn't want to bug anybody, and so I would play through headphones, but no teaching, nobody really showing. Corby might have showed me a couple of things. He hold your fingers here, here, and here, and do this, and that was pretty much all that ever went. And I hung around with those guys a lot, and I'd get up on the microphone when they were practicing and do some singing, and it was never all that great, but it was kind of that taste of music that I apparently was yearning for, that I wanted, that I was looking for. And again, at 21 years old, you make the decisions that you make, and I kind of started hanging out with a different group of people, and music was not a part of that group. Playing music, listening to it was, obviously, but playing music and being involved in music and making music was not part of that group. And again, that was like 21. So at that point, then you fill the years 21 to 48. Yeah, 21 to 48. You fill those years with just listening to music of all kinds. And then probably about a year ago now, right around now, I stumbled across a reaction video on YouTube. Somebody that was reacting to Thunderstruck, live at River Plate. And I remember thinking to myself, who the hell has not seen this or heard this song? What do you mean, a reaction to a 15-year-old song? What the fuck are you talking about? Reaction video. So I gotta watch it, just because it sounds ridiculous to me that some human being is trying to pawn off the idea that they've never heard this AC/DC tune. And well, the dog's not happy right now. Anyway, so I decided, let's watch this video. And you guys have all seen it, it's a great song, cool, and it led me to start thinking about, man, that guy's getting old, Angus. Getting old. Look at him dancing, man, and that was 10 years ago. Good God, wonder what he's doing now. And then went to look for, that led me to a second video of far more current. I want to say it was probably from 23, the next video that I watched. And Angus is totally white-haired, duck walking across the stage, and I'm just like, dude, this guy has been doing this job since before you were born, let alone playing the guitar, but doing this for a profession, as a job, as a career, longer than you've been alive. 2-3 years longer than you've been alive, and you shit knob haven't even learned how to play the fucking guitar yet. And that was that. The decision was made. I'm going to learn how to play guitar. And at that point, I made a decision that I'm going to buy a middle-of-the-road guitar. I'm not going to buy the cheapest, Temu guitar I can come up with, eBay guitar I can come up with. I'm going to buy a middle-of-the-road. I'm not going to buy a $2,000 Gibson. Let's do something a little more. My kid gave me very good advice, my boy. He said, Pops, I know you pretty fucking well, obviously, and if you spend $200 on it, you're going to be okay with it just sitting in a fucking closet and not doing shit. And I also know that you're probably not going to spend, $2,000 on something that you don't know whether or not is going to be worth it. So why not go? Yeah, why not spend $400 or $500 and buy a decent one? That was kind of his idea, and he was right on the money. The first guitar I bought is the SG. I think you guys might have seen it in some of mine. It's a 010 model year root beer burst SG G400. It's an Epiphone G400. The first guitar I really bought for myself, but I think I gave about $400 for it, a little less than $400. And it's nice, limited edition, blah, blah, blah. I've never seen another one with that finish on it. I did mar the finish a little bit, changing pickups and having to drill some holes, and I kind of marred the finish, but it's under the strings and you can't see it too awful much. It's not terrible. I mean, it obviously diminishes the value of the guitar some, but it does now have push-pull pickups that it didn't have before. Put Epiphone Pro Buckers in that one. Well, Chinese knockoff Epiphone Pro Buckers, but they have to be. I mean, there's no way you're going to set a real, honest to God Epiphone Pro Buckers for $60. It's just not happening. But that's what's in it, and they sound great. That was my first guitar, though, and I just made, like I said, I watched that video. I made that decision. I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. That's what I'm going to do. And so I ordered it. Ordered it off of eBay. It came from a pawn shop in Minneapolis, I think, Minnesota somewhere, and showed up. Didn't really know anything at all about it. Nothing at all. Got it in tune, and turned on the musician and started going. That was that. And so that was probably about a year ago. I hit 250 days yesterday on musician in terms of days of musicality, 250. So that probably means to me that I've been at it for 280, 275, 280. So we're closing in on a year. But that, that's the explanation of how the bug bit me. In less than a year, I've gone from, I think I might want to try to do this, to I'm going to build an entire life around it and figure out how to make music my world and figure out how to make music my living now, because the bug bit me that deep, that hard. And, obviously my playing's coming around, and doing this is pretty fun to me. I like doing this. It'd be great if I could get it to spread out and get the footprint out there so more people could see it. Surely there's other folks that kind of feel the same way I do about learning how to play kind of late in your world, but it's still, you hold on to that little bit of hope that, man, there's a possibility. There is a very slim yet still possible for me to go out in a blaze of rock and roll glory. And you know what? I'm going to try. I've certainly wasted more than a couple years here and there of my life on various things. So we're going to try to spend a couple years at this and see if we can't get this going and get people to wanting to see it, So that's going to be it. We're going to shut her down. We hit a half hour this morning. That's kind of about where I like to keep these Sunday morning shows, about a half hour. But that, guys, is a very short and kind of rambling, well, somewhat short and kind of not a very straight line path of how I got to this channel and how I got to music. And maybe your story's the same. Whatever your story is, throw it in a comment. Let's hear it. I'd sure love to read it. Let me hear how you got here. What brought you to playing music? What brought you to my channels? What brought you to any of my channels? So, yeah, thanks for checking us out, guys. Happy Sunday morning. Tomorrow night, another live show tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Mountain Time. We will talk about the upcoming week, what we got done this week, what I accomplished this week. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I really do appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. It's really, really helpful. It's really important. I will. I know it doesn't matter yet at my numbers in viewership, but I will get the Patreon, the Buy Me Coffee. I will get all that stuff going this week.